Welcome to once again another installment of Ftn Mma Podcast. Blake O'Ruling alongside David May for another installment, another Zoom call. Dave, how are you doing today?
Super good. How are you?
Doing good. Happy to be here and happy to talk about what's going on. There's been a lot that has happened over the last few weeks, and we're gonna jump right into it because we're a couple hours away from another fight night, the third fight night in a week. How's your week been with all these fights going on?
Listen, I'm glad that you asked that question because I think that the world, and we've said it before, but we should say it again, and we should say it every day, owes a huge thank you to Dana White for allowing us to have sports.
Yeah.
And combat sports in this time is fantastic. And no, I'm super stoked. I've liked everything that we've been able to see these last, 8 days, three fight cards in 8 days.
7 days.
Yeah, well, and you have to ask yourself, how's this guy pulling this off? And, maybe it's just, strong will. Maybe it's a desire for, bringing the best sports to us. And maybe it's just a love of country and a love of freedom. I think Dana White is leading the way, and I appreciate everything that he does. And it has been a fantastic week, and it's been a very violent week.
Well, just to bounce off of that before we jump into these rounds, what I am so happy about is the fact that it didn't crash down and burn. I think we all were a little tentative to say 3 events in 1 week. This thing isn't over by any means. We're going to keep dealing with this stuff for a while. It's just kind of part of life at this point. And with all that being said, Dana has been able to put together a system and say, hey, we can do this still. We can test these guys. We can, get them on the scale, be sanitized. Jacare Souza, Uriah Hall, that's the only fight that's been canceled so far. That's incredible. That's incredible that only one fight has been canceled. I think everybody thought that it was going to be a lot more cancellations, a lot more last minute pullouts, a lot more, fighters, anxiety, maybe saying, I don't know if I can do this, blah, blah, or like a Rose Namajunas thing where it's like, my family's, sick. I'm not going to be able to make it. But the UFC has pulled it off, and it is one of the most incredible weeks in sports, not only for MMA fans, but for sports fans in general. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's watching, and everybody's eyes are on this sport because they say, man, as long as there's something, I'm going to watch it. And the UFC is doing just that. So hats off to Dana White. So let's jump into round number 1. We've got a lot of big storylines. There's stuff going on. Last Saturday night was a huge night for a lot of things. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this Wednesday. And then we'll also throw in some fighter picks for you guys. Number 1, round 1, Henry Cejudo defeats Dominic Cruz for the bantamweight title. He defends it. He becomes the second fighter in the history of the UFC to defend his belt in multiple weight classes as a double champion. And he chose, kind of to a surprise to everybody, he chose to retire to close off his night, I guess I should say. Dave, what were your thoughts of Henry Cejudo hanging up the gloves?
Well, before we even get to hang up the gloves, I think that we all have to take a step back and think about how great of an opportunity this fight was to see arguably the best fighter in the weight class ever, taking on arguably the greatest combat athlete of all time. And it was fun. I was a little, the fight itself, I'm not going to say it was anticlimactic. Decent fight, but I think you truly saw, if you were honest, just a guy who was operating on a different level. And unfortunately, always been a fan of Dominic, always been a fan of Henry's. But I think that anybody who is watching just that clash with an honest eye had to say, this isn't Dom from 8 years ago. This isn't even Dom from 4 years ago. And this Henry, we've not seen anybody like this guy. And Dom's not going to beat him. Maybe nobody's going to beat him. And then at the end, he takes off the gloves. And I was thinking about, what's he doing? Is he trying to pull, a Jordan and walk away at the top to go do something else and then come back? I don't know. To me, if that's the last time we see Henry, that's a shame. I hope that my hope of all hopes is it's a negotiating tactic and he wants some big paydays and he wants Dana White to see the value of the Triple C, to see that this guy is worth keeping around and maybe, give him a little bit of time to relax with his, new family. I don't know. And then come back at some time. But if he's gone, I'm disappointed only because the guy that you saw is on another level than everybody else that we see at those lower weight divisions.
Yeah, I'll talk about the fight a little bit more in the second round when we talk about the stoppage. But for just the retirement thing, to me, when you said it's a shame if it's the last time we ever see him. For me, Henry Cejudo, just being completely out there, he's my favorite fighter. He's my favorite fighter to watch. He's my favorite fighter to watch grapple. I love grappling. Like the way that he's able to wrestle these guys. I mean, it's incredible. His explosiveness. I mean, he has the explosiveness of like a Jorge Masvidal when he gets in the pocket with these guys. And then he has the wrestling of himself, of a Mark Madsen. I mean, he's just an unbelievable wrestler. With all that being said, I really love Henry being. I love Henry letting go now. There's a lot of guys who just hang on for a little too long. Like you said, Michael Jordan being an example. He came back, played until 2003. He was 41 years old. There was no reason for him to stick around. There was no reason for him to keep playing basketball, but he chose to come back. And as much as it doesn't tarnish his legacy because he is Michael Jordan, people still hey, remember they threw away those last couple years of your career? Shaquille O'Neal, another one where it's just, guys, he should have retired after he won, his 2006 NBA championship. And if we want to bring it to the side of MMA, Anderson Silva, he should have hung it up a long time ago. He was going to retire before the Chris Weidman fight. He didn't want to take that fight, and then he ended up losing. And then, we've seen what's happened over the last few years because of that loss. Henry letting go now truly gives him, I would say, this is my take after, a few days of sitting on it. Henry walking away now is the most responsible thing he could ever do, and it is the smartest thing he could ever do because it gives him, in my opinion, the greatest MMA resume of all time. You beat the greatest 125er of all time. You beat the greatest 135-pounder of all time and the second greatest 130-pounder of all time, give or take whoever it is, TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz. Those are probably the consensus number one and number twos, however you want to rank them. And then you beat a guy who was who has been dominant at bantamweight for a very long time in Marlon Moraes. Henry has done it all. He's beaten everyone. If Henry comes back, his next fight is Peter Yan or an Aljamain Sterling or a Corey Sandhagen. Who are any of those guys? What can any of those guys offer to Henry's legacy? Absolutely nothing. What can anybody next to the name TJ Dillashaw, Dominic Cruz, or Demetrius Johnson give to Henry Cejudo? Absolutely nothing. And that includes a heavy payday. Nobody's going to pay a pay-per-view for Petr Yan and Henry Cejudo. So what's the point of him coming back when he can etch this in stone, say, I'm the greatest lightweight fighter of all time. I beat everyone. And you can bend the knee to that.
Okay, well, and then maybe this is where we have to see, the wheels turning behind the scenes. You mentioned someone, and I'll come back to that in a second. But let's be honest. Is this kind of like the GSP walking away? Is this more like George St. Pierre walking away? Because what else is there left to do? George St. Pierre, cleaned everybody out. So, and then came back and won a title, a world title, a division up. So the question has to be, is he going to sit back and wait for TJ to come in and run the table and then set up a big rematch, TJ, Henry, give him a year, give him a year and a half, 2 years. Maybe that's the long-term play. He's saying, I'm not going to get a payday with Piotr or with Aljamain or with anybody else. I'm just not going to get the heat. Nobody's really going to care, because this was the fight that everybody wanted to see. And oh, by the way, before I forget, I got to tell you, we need to run that one back. I do want to see, so maybe the wheels are turning, and maybe behind the scenes, this is a setup to allow TJ to come in, pick some fights, beat some guys, make a name, and possibly come back and fight him, even though I know Henry's already said he's never going to fight a cheater. The one thing before we go any further, I forgot to bring this up to you, and I wanted to do it at the very start. From now on, if you'd like, you can refer to me, the fill-in on the Ftn MMA podcast, as the Uriah Faber of the Ftn MMA podcast world, because
incredible.
I may be past my prime, and I may not be able to make the weight class, but I will show up. And that was probably the greatest. You and I both texted back. One of the greatest scenes in the history of the UFC was Uriah Faber on vacation out in Florida, hopping in to make official weight just under 155 pounds so he could fight a 145-pound fight in case his guy didn't get the visa to fight. So, Blake, you're in your prime, and Brick's in his prime. I'm a little bit past my prime, but you can refer to me as the California old guy, the Uriah Faber of the Ftn MMA podcast.
Brick has said I look like Dominic Cruz, so I'm going to say I'm Dominic Cruz, you're Uriah Faber, and we'll give Brick whoever he wants. TJ Dillashaw if you want.
Right. That is great. But
just kidding.
Back to your point, yeah. You know, if Henry does walk away, and this is the last that we've seen him, I'm only disappointed because I've never seen a guy look
so
this
good.
Unbeatable. I mean,
right.
Let's be honest. This guy is just operating on a whole nother speed, a whole nother intensity, a whole nother level in striking, grappling, and just cage control. He dominated that fight from go.
And oh, go ahead.
No, finish. It was great.
I mean, I'm gonna jump this into the second round. We all agreed, guys, Dom is too long. Dom is really good at keeping distance. Dom is not going to be able to help Henry to close in. And look what he does. Nobody would have thought that he would have been able to chop at his legs. The guy, 99.99% of the time, when a fighter is longer and has the length and has the leg reach and things like that, those are the guys that are able to chop your legs. That's why John Jones is so effective, because he's 6'4" as a 205-pounder. So with Henry, 5'4" versus a 5'9" guy, nobody's expecting him to be able to chop at legs, but he was able to just use Dominic's footwork to step in and chop at his leg, and then step back and then chop at his leg. And if Dom wanted to go for something, he hits that nasty high crotch and takes him inside, and then he can wrestle with him. I mean, it was something I couldn't believe what I was watching. I went, oh my gosh, he knows what he's doing. This guy's the 2-division champ and the gold medalist. Of course, this is Triple C, guys. What were we thinking? And every single one of us, it went right over our heads.
Well, and here's the reality is he out-thought the thinker.
Yeah.
The most cerebral game planner in mixed martial arts. Probably the smartest guy to talk about fighting. The guy that sees inside everything got out-thought by Henry. Henry had a smart game plan, and it's not that he just came in and affected that game plan. He just thought him. I just thought it was domination from start to finish. But great fight, and it was fun to watch, and I loved every second of it. Very
fun. It was probably my favorite fight of the night, because it was tough to watch Tony and things like that, and I love seeing Henry do well. But anyways, jumping in, I'll kick off this round talking about the stoppage and what Dominic Cruz had to say about it. My takeaway, obviously, Dominic Cruz upset about the stoppage. Keith Peterson According to Dom, he smelled like cigarettes and alcohol. He couldn't look at him in the eyes when he came into the locker room before the fight. Dom was talking to him, and he wouldn't really engage with talking to him. Keith Peterson stops the fight in with the last 2 seconds of the third round, I want to say. And it was the second or third round. Keith Peterson stops the fight, and Dom was not happy about it. And here's my issue with it. We have never seen Dominick Cruz that, and this is kind of going out on a limb a little bit. People might not like what I'm about to say. We've never seen Dominick that mentally weak before. We've never seen Dominick say to himself, "Oh, well, it's all your fault and it's not my fault." Do we remember when he lost to Cody Garbrandt, and he stands up at the press conference and he's got his glasses on? You could tell he's been a little emotional. Maybe he's beat up. I mean, he's just went through a 5-round war with Cody Garbrandt. And they say, "Dominick, how do you feel about the loss? Like, you don't lose. You're Dominick Cruz." And he says, "Loss is a part of life. Loss is what makes us better. It builds our character, blah, 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 blah." Who is Ben Askren in a loss? He's a good sport. Who is Conor McGregor when he loses? These bigger names, they are applauded for not only their wins, but the way that they react to their losses. And that's the true mixed martial artist that makes those two who they are. When we talk about Daniel Cormier, we say Daniel Cormier is an incredible fighter, incredible wrestler, very, very accomplished and things like that. His downfall is he's kind of a sore loser. And the thing is, this one fight for Dominick Cruz tarnishes kind of a legacy of who he's always been. He kind of broke his character with this loss. And to be completely honest, if from my bird's eye, from my view of it, I saw that it was almost a late stoppage because Henry had hit him with 11 unanswered shots. And yes, he was starting to finally move from the cage, but he looked to be completely out and not defending himself about 5 or 6 punches into that drop. And Keith Peterson, in my opinion, did not do anything wrong. And it also is a very, very bad thing to say about Herb Dean and Dan Miragliotta and all of the UFC referee veterans, all the UFC veteran referees that say to themselves, "Guys, we know Keith. Keith doesn't drink. Maybe Keith was smoking before the event or something like that, but that doesn't change your mindset or anything." And for all that to be said, it just left a sour taste for me of who Dominick Cruz is and who he actually is. And you could just tell he was very upset about it.
I think he handled it about as poorly as he could have. Go back to the real question is, was the stoppage early? Maybe, but who cares? The beating, it doesn't matter. The stoppage was what the stoppage was. The referee stopped the fight. We can cry about it all we want. He was getting punched in the face. He wasn't doing anything really to mount any kind. I know, and I understand this. It's intelligently defend. He was climbing the cage. Maybe he wasn't, completely unconscious, but he had lost that fight. And for me, I had seen enough, and Herzog had said that he had seen enough. End of the story. To come out afterwards and talk about booze and cigarettes, my question is, which one of these referees doesn't smell like booze and cigarettes? I don't know. And it's kind of silly. Dom didn't do himself any favors, and I like that you brought up Daniel Cormier.
This is one.
We've never questioned the mental toughness of Dominick Cruz. I think in this fight, like I said before, Henry outthought the thinker. I think he mentally broke him.
Yeah.
And we have evidence of that breakage with Dom's unusual outlier of a reaction to the outcome.
Yeah.
I didn't see him, I hoped that he would win because I like him. I thought that he probably wouldn't because I just think Henry is on another level. But I was thrilled for the entire fight. Retirement at the end made me sad. The complaining about the officiating just kind of left me flat. I didn't want to hear it. You know, it was a little bit self-indulgent, and I didn't expect it from Dom. And I'm sure that we'll hear something later on, and I'm sure he'll make amends for it. The guy's one of the better guys. But you might be right. I don't know if it taints his legacy, but I'm sure this is not how he wanted this fight to be. And I think this is the last time we see him in the cage. I think we're done with Dom. I think this is it. You know, it wasn't just Henry retiring. I think this is Dominic Cruz's retirement as well, or was Dominic Cruz's retirement as well.
Absolutely. Let's jump into round number 3. Francis Ngannou absolutely obliterates Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
What the freak?
And now
who is this guy?
Francis Ngannou versus the heavyweight division. Dave, can I get your thoughts just on the fight itself, where the heavyweight division is at, and where Francis Ngannou lies in this train wreck of a division right now?
Okay, and it's not just it's not a train wreck of a division. It is a grease fire in a crappy cafe right now that needs to be put out. And if Stipe wants to put it out, go be a fireman or be the heavyweight champion of the world. You can't be both. I'm done. You're not a part-time fighter. This isn't a part-time sport. This is a full-time sport. And if you want to play part-time, that's fine. Get in the ring with Francis and give him his shot, because this is silly. I don't know that I'm interested in the trilogy with Stipe and Daniel Cormier. I don't know that I'm super interested in seeing Daniel Cormier fight Francis Ngannou. But am I interested in seeing Francis fight Stipe? You bet your rear I am. I'm so excited. I want to see that fight. That's the fight I want to see. I don't want any interim championships. I want the heavyweight championship, the UFC heavyweight championship of the world on the line. And I want Stipe to put down the fire hose, get in the gym, get trained, and get on Fight Island and fight this freaking monster. I want King Kong versus freaking Godzilla on Fight Island. I don't want to sit around and wait, and I'm sick of all this chasing cats and trees. We're done.
45 seconds, 26 seconds, 71 seconds, and 18 seconds. Those are his last 5 fights, or 4 fights, or whatever I just said. That's insane. I mean, this guy is literally knocking out everybody, and it's not even a question. Jairzinho Rozenstruik was supposed to be the guy. He was supposed to be the undefeated guy who was going to walk in here, go up against a tough Francis Ngannou, and give Francis Ngannou, everything he had, and he lasted 18 seconds against this guy. Like I said last week, or a couple weeks ago, this guy's hungry. This guy feels disrespected. This guy feels like he's been standing in line for so long and letting people cut him at the DMV. He's sick of it. He's going to take this belt. He's going to take it from whoever it is, and he doesn't care who it is. He doesn't care if it's DC. He doesn't care if it's Stipe. He doesn't care if it's Dana White. He's going to pull it out of his hands. Francis Ngannou needs to fight for the title. I am so sick of Stipe putting this thing on the shelf and saying, oh, COVID-19. Well, guess what, buddy? You're in a sport where the UFC doesn't care about COVID-19. We got it all figured out. So it's time for you to get back to work. It is time for you to either fight Daniel Cormier and throw him back into retirement, or have Daniel Cormier put you back into retirement, which would cause a big old thing, because then we just have Francis Stipe anyways. Francis is going to fight Stipe next, because DC only wants one fight, and he's not going to fight Francis Ngannou. He said it at the booth. He said, I don't want anything to do with him. It's kind of like Yoel Romero and Darren Till in middleweight right now. He doesn't want anything to do with him, because no one wants to fight that beast of him. Anyways, I'm going way too fast right now. But
no, you're not. You're driving at the speed limit. And here's the reality: nobody wants to fight this guy because this guy didn't TKO Rozenstruik, right? Or no,
he knocked him out.
He burned his lights out. I mean, it wasn't hey, a couple of unanswered punches. It was one punch that turned the button in his brain off. The guy was done, completely done. This guy is as scary a man as we've ever seen. And here's the greatest thing Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Somebody's been trying to pick a fight with this guy on social media. And that somebody has been taking a lot of drugs during the quarantine. And that somebody's name is John Jones. And I'm going to tell you what, if I want to see Francis Ngannou beat up whoever, I just want to see him beat somebody up. And then if John Jones wants to take his life into his own hands and fight this guy and think that he's a sniper going up against an Abrams tank, this guy is going to blow his doors off. One punch from this guy is like getting run over by a Mack truck.
Well,
This isn't just playing patty cake. This isn't a blown up 205 pounder throwing leather at you. This isn't Chael Sonnen trying to ground and pound you. This is a man. This is a man mountain. This guy is literally looked like freaking Godzilla, king of the monsters, out there putting people to sleep. And this guy is scary.
I was watching with friends and my brother, and none of them they're all, not big fans or anything like that. They don't know who Jairzinho Rozenstruik or Francis Ngannou are. Jairzinho comes out first, blue corner. And everyone goes, whoa, is that the guy? Is that the guy everyone's been talking about? I go, nope, just wait. just wait till it's like in Star Wars, the Phantom Menace when he's like always a bigger fish and there's the one big fish and then the bigger fish swallows him. I go, guys, just wait until Francis comes out. You guys haven't seen Big yet. I mean, this guy is and he comes out and everyone just goes silent. I mean, it's a mental game to just play against this guy. And maybe Stipe's a little, worried. He goes, hey, I beat you a couple of years ago, but you weren't the Francis you are now. And everybody, I'll put it this way. I'll close out the round this way. Everybody should be afraid of Francis Ngannou right now. Whether you're John Jones trying to blow yourself up to get to where you want to go or, just not cut weight, I guess. Whether you're Daniel Cormier on your last fight and you're 42 years old, or whether you're Stipe Miocic and your reign as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time is on the line, every single one of your legacies should be scared of Francis Ngannou and his knockout power.
Agreed. This guy puts brain damage on you.
Yeah.
This guy doesn't just hit hard. This guy hits brain damage hard.
All right. Round number 4, Justin Gaethje versus Tony Ferguson. The fight itself happened a little different than you and I had both predicted, a little different than a lot of people actually predicted. And now Justin Gaethje is finally the interim lightweight champion of the world. He's fought a lot of guys, taken a long time to get here. What is next for both of these fighters, and what is next for the lightweight division in general? We have Conor McGregor standing aside, wanting to make a fight happen, wanting to fight in July. We've got Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is planned to come back in the summer. Dave, what do you think happens to both of these fighters? What was your thoughts on the fight itself? Everything pertaining to this matchup.
Number one, Justin Gaethje put the belt down. He doesn't want to be the interim champion. He took it off. Dana White put it on. He took it off. He set it on the ground. He doesn't want any of it. He doesn't want anything to do with it. This guy wants Khabib, thinks he can beat Khabib, and wants to punch his lights out. This guy this fight broke out so differently than I could have even imagined. I had a buddy tell me that he thought that it was going to play out this way, and I just couldn't for the life of me think that. I thought Justin Gaethje, he's got the power. He's a little bit wild. He's just not going to be able to handle the technical superiority and the tactical superiority that I thought Tony would bring to this fight. Tony didn't bring it to this fight. Something didn't seem right with Tony from go. He did land one punch, a couple of extra seconds in the second round, and he wins this fight. And we're not even having this conversation, but that didn't happen. What happened was that round ended, and Justin Gaethje turned into a very technical, very powerful, very scary version of himself. This guy's been a champion in another organization. This guy's been a wrestling champion. This guy's been a grinder from go, and I think he's constantly been overlooked. I overlooked him. I think this guy is the biggest threat in the lightweight division. I think that Blake, I think he can beat Khabib. Not only do I think he can beat Khabib, I think he can beat Khabib up. I think that he's going to use wrestling to keep this fight standing. I think his boxing is just a little too crisp. I never thought it was. I think that he has elevated his game with his fight camp to a level that we haven't seen. He's scary. And oh, by the way, this guy, I think this guy's got a chip on his shoulder. I don't think this guy's done. I think this guy wants to go back through the ranks. I think he wants to clean out this whole division. When he sat that belt down, what he said to me by doing that was, I'm going to be the champ and I'm beating everybody up. This is my playground. I run the show. I don't care. Give me the next guy.
Yeah.
It's like, I think it was years ago, Kobe won a division championship. It was like the Western Conference Championship. And they said, why aren't you guys celebrating? And he's like, because this is nothing. And he walked away. We don't celebrate the interim championship. This guy has a killer's mentality. And I'm telling you what, the highlight, Dave, plenty of highlights. And I'm scared. I'm looking at the list. Obviously, he beat up Tony. I'd love to see him fight Poirier. I'd love to see him fight McGregor, Hooker, Felder, Oliveira. Every one of these guys, I think he'd be game to fight him. He wants Khabib first, and I think he's just going to check the list. He's going to beat them all up, and it's going to be fun. I think this division is going to be lights out for the next year and a half.
There are so many thoughts I have pertaining to everything. I'll start with Tony Ferguson and say, just like you, I did not see that happening. I did not see a Tony Ferguson who hadn't lost since I was 15 years old. I'm 23 now. He hasn't lost in 8 years. I mean, he's a machine, and he didn't turn on that night. He wasn't there. A lot of people say it might've been the weight cut. I completely agree with that. Maybe it was the weight cut. It could have been all sorts of different things, but the fact of the matter is Tony's going to have to get one or two big names before he has the opportunity to fight Khabib again. And with that being said, Justin Gaethje, he's right there. I don't hate the idea of a Conor Gaethje fight because I think that'd be a really, really fun matchup for both. And I think it kind of be the way I look at Justin Gaethje right now is I look at him as kind of like an Eddie Alvarez, a large lightweight, cuts a lot of weight, who is a good boxer, very good wrestler, can do pretty much all of it. And I'd like to see what he can do. Khabib Nurmagomedov, he'll fight anybody. And if it's not Tony's jiu-jitsu, I can't go against him. I really can't. I can't say that I think Justin Gaethje can beat Khabib because Justin Gaethje is a really good version of most fighters. The reason I always said Tony could beat Khabib is because Tony is different than everybody else. Tony has always been different than everybody else, and that's why I say that he could maybe beat Khabib because it would be things that he hadn't seen before. His jiu-jitsu, his elbows from the bottom, things like that. The fight with Justin Gaethje and Tony never went to the ground. If it went to the ground, it could have been a completely different thing, but Gaethje did not want to engage on the ground, and Tony did not take Justin down. And granted, he respected the takedown defense that Gaethje has. And all being said, the lightweight division has a lot of things to look forward to. We could see Tony Conor. That would be fireworks. We could see Khabib Gaethje and make that a main and co-main. I don't know if Dana White wants to deal with all that security, but that would be a good fight night or something like that, if you ask me. All things aside, I am very excited to see what happens, and I truly, truly hope that we haven't seen the best of Tony Ferguson yet, because if that's the Tony that we're going to see for the rest of his career, it'll be very, very sad to watch that downfall.
Agreed. That wasn't the Tony that I expected to see. I'm with you. I thought that Tony was the antidote to Khabib. The length, just the technical ability off of his back, just the improvisation, all that stuff I thought was going to reap dividends against Khabib, but the MMA gods have frowned on us, brother. and we're not going to see that fight. And if we do, it'll have to be a year and a half, maybe 2 from now, because they both have to put some miles beyond where we are now. Khabib's got to have to fight Justin, and I'm interested to see that fight right now.
I am too.
Tony Connor, that might be really exciting. I mean, that might be a great fight. And all I know is this. Oh, and I think I know this. Did Dana already not say that Khabib Justin is going to be on Fight Island?
That's what they're planning. And Gaethje doesn't want Connor.
Yeah. Well, then I don't care. I want Khabib, and I want Justin, and I want it on Fight Island, and I want him to wear tracksuits, and I want him to show up with the Mortal Kombat face masks, and I want fatalities. Legit. I want it all.
Oh man, that'd be great.
The greatest.
I would love all of it. Oh man, it's great to have the sport back. It's just great to have the sport back.
Oh, good. It is so good.
Connor Tony's exciting because think about this. It's kind of a win-win situation. Whoever wins that fight, they go, oh yeah, this guy's the man still. Because the sport, I say this every single week, the sport is more fun when Conor McGregor is in the sport and when he's doing well. Conor's not my favorite fighter. I don't think Conor McGregor is the best. I'm not a big fanboy. But it is a lot more fun, and it brings more eyes to the sport. So if Conor beats Tony, great. If Tony wins, it's a huge plus for the rest of the mixed martial arts fan base who wants to see Tony still do well, because everybody's rooting for Tony to come back. Nobody wanted to see him get beat up like that, but Gaethje did his thing, and hats off to him, and hats off to Trevor Whitman. That guy is a mixed martial arts genius.
Seriously, that was scary good preparation.
Yeah.
On a short fight camp.
Yeah, 4 weeks.
But scary good.
Incredible. All right, let's jump to round number 5. Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. Glover looks scary. And Anthony Smith came out sharp, but the gas tank ran out. And now there is a lot of controversy as to Anthony Smith's corner and protecting your fighters and what is the real role of the corner. And Dave, I'll give the time over to you to get your thoughts on all these different things. Glover Teixeira, Anthony Smith, his corner.
Okay.
Lightweight.
Number one, I'm going to tell you what, for a 40-year-old guy, Glover Teixeira looks nails. Now, here's an interesting story. A couple of years ago, I was flying out of LAX, and I walked past a really thick built, over 6 foot tall, bald guy with some cauliflower in his ears. And nobody knows who this guy is. And I slide up next to him and I say, hey, Glover Teixeira. He says, what's up? And I told him, I go, hey man, I've been a fan of yours because I know he was a training partner at Tux. Put his arm around me. I was wearing a jiu-jitsu t-shirt and we took a photo. It was actually great. That Glover Teixeira is a first class, solid citizen, definitely one of the good guys. And I think it's important before we go on with what we're going to talk about to know that Glover Teixeira is one of the good guys and is a specimen at 40. And then I'm going to preface everything before I talk about the stoppage with this. The biggest lie that we tell each other is there's 2 kinds of people. There's not 2 kinds of people. Because if there were 2 kinds of people, you and I would either be like Anthony Smith or not like Anthony Smith. And all of us like to consider ourselves, better than whatever suck person is out there. There's tons of different kinds of people. And you and I and everyone else, we're not like Anthony Smith. We're not even like Glover Teixeira, but we're definitely not like Anthony Smith. That guy said after the fight, hey, listen, man, I come out of these fights with my shield or on it. And for those that don't know, that means he's walking out carrying his shield or he's walking out dead carried on his shield. This guy is a different animal. And there's a bunch of these different animals in the UFC. And there's a bunch of these different animals in all walks of life. And they're not me and you. And there's not 2 kinds of people. That's the lie. People say that to try to make themselves feel better. And and everybody knows, hey, there's guys at my gym that are, he won't tap, he'll go to sleep. Not the same guy. Anthony Smith proved this week that he is operating on a different level of toughness, a different level of just being. That guy is an animal. It's like in Jaws, right? You're out there and they're out in the ocean and Roy Scheider's throwing out chum, and then this big shark comes up and he's sitting there on a boat and he looks at the boat captain and he says, I think you're going to need a bigger boat. Mm-hmm. Anthony Smith is Jaws.
Yeah.
Coming up out of the water. And if you want to fight this guy, you need a bigger boat. Now, on this particular night, Glover Teixeira came with a bigger boat and beat him up. And he beat him up because, and this is something that I'm going to talk about the corner for a minute, and then I'm going to jump into why the fight should have stopped. His corner was scrambled eggs. And scrambled eggs means you're given too many instructions and you're never stopping. If you want to fry an egg, you break it, you put it into the pan, and you just let it cook. You want to scramble an egg, you break the egg, you put it in the pan, and you keep moving it back and forth. You keep doing, you're active. Well, Anthony Smith's corner was so active that even Daniel Cormier was saying, dude, these guys are wall to wall. I mean, it was ridiculous. You can't do that to their fighter. And I blame the corner for being scrambled eggs and scrambling this guy up and allowing Glover to eventually just destroy him. Round number 1 went to Anthony. Round number 2 was Glover. Round number 3 was Glover. And round number 4 was Glover. I mean, it was freaking ridiculous. That being said, referee Herzog should have stopped the fight.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that he should have stopped the fight in round 3 when he got caught and went down and had about 12 unanswered punches and was covering up. That's the sign of a guy who's going to go out on his shield.
Yeah.
Telling you, save my life, because I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to tap to strikes. This guy's not getting on my back and choking me. He's punching me in the face. I'm not defending myself. I'm bleeding out of my ears. Both of my eyes are busted up. My teeth are knocked out of my face. Save me. So this is on the referee. He should have done it. Now, Anthony's come out later and said, no, don't blame it on the ref. Don't blame it on the corner. This is me. I'm this guy. He is that guy because he's a different animal. He's freaking Jaws, and everybody else needs a bigger boat. Herzog should have stopped the fight. Corner, if they loved this guy, would have thrown in the towel. I remember BJ Penn's corner stopping a fight one time when he just got blasted. I think it was GSP was just piecing him up, and they said, we're done in the corner. They didn't send him out in like the 5th round. But that's because maybe his corner guy's his brother. I wish the corner would have thrown in the towel. I think that the referee should have stopped the fight. Anthony Smith is a maniac. Anthony Smith is a savage. Glover Teixeira at 40 is unreal. Now, I don't think he makes another run, but man, I just want to watch that guy fight for the next 1.5, 2 years until he's done, because that guy is a boxer's boxer, a fighter's fighter, is just a savage.
Light heavyweight is very fun right now. I mean, it went from one of the more boring divisions, and there's some guys. I mean, you got Dominic Reyes, John Jones, of course. You have Jan Blachowicz. You have, you got Glover Teixeira now. I mean, there's big names. I mean, Anthony Smith fought for the title a little over a year ago. These guys are all legit, and all Thiago Santos is not even mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of guys who could take the throne, and a lot of guys who are exciting matchups. And so with all that, I can't wait to see what happens. I really like what you said about Anthony Smith's corner being scrambled eggs, be doing too much, but not doing necessarily the right thing at certain times. It reminded me of Phil Jackson, one of former Chicago Bulls and Lakers head coach, 11 championships. He has been talked about to be kind of the one who fries the egg, the one who lets them sit the Lakers would go on a 10-2 run, or the Lakers would lose a 10-2 run, and Phil would not call a timeout. And people would say, why don't you coach? Why don't you do it? He goes, these guys are going to figure it out themselves. I don't need to call timeout and tell them what to do. They know what they need to do. They just need to understand what's going on, and then it's going to happen. Same thing with Anthony Smith's corner. And so sometimes overcoaching does a little bit too much. In this situation, in round number 4 or even in round number 3, like you said, they should have stepped in. And they should have said, hey, I put myself in this situation because, and again, I'm not Anthony Smith. I'm not a tough guy by any means. If I'm in an octagon and I'm fighting a guy who's 40 years old, past his prime, not competing for the title anymore, and I'm a guy who just fought John Jones a few years ago, a guy who just beat Alexander Gustafsson. If I'm a guy who's supposed to win this fight, I mean, this fight was, again, it was supposed to be in Nebraska. It was supposed to be in his hometown. Anthony Smith was supposed to win this fight. So he's never going to say, take me out, throw in the towel. But what does he say? Guys, my teeth are falling out. He's not going to say, guys, end this fight. But he is going to say, guys, I'm losing this fight. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? But nobody, and including me, if I were if I was as courageous as Anthony Smith, I would never say, I need to finish this fight. I need you guys to quit this fight for me, because I'm not going to do it. Let's not forget, Anthony Smith could have had the light heavyweight title when John Jones hit the illegal shot. Anthony Smith will never say, I'm done. He will say, I'm going to win this fight the way I win the fight. But in that situation, his way of saying, guys, I might be done, is, hey, my freaking teeth are out of my mouth. My teeth are falling out. I'm handing my teeth to Jason Herzog. Jason Herzog. Anthony Smith is a beast, but you need to protect your fighter. And you need to be able to say, you need to be able to read what this kid is saying to you. This kid is saying, guys, I think I've had enough, but I'm not going to be the one that can take the blame for this, because I am the guy who takes all the heat. And because they didn't take it, now they're taking all the heat.
Yeah, no, agreed. You have to give him an out.
Yeah.
You have to give him the ability to say, oh, you shouldn't have stopped it.
Because he's the one in the limelight. He's the one in the limelight all day.
Yeah. So all you need to do is say, hey, we're done. You're done. I can't take any more of this, and throw in the towel. I just don't think, number one, we don't see this enough in mixed martial arts fights, because we think, and I know that these guys in the corner think the same thing, is that, Anthony Smith is a different animal. This guy can land something and possibly win this fight. Now, he had Glover hurt earlier, but at some point you have to say, live to fight another day. And he's not going to do it, because he's walking forward, throwing leather, and trying to beat this guy up. You have to save him from himself. And they didn't do that. And I blame Jason Herzog, though, too. That fight should have been stopped by the referee. And when it wasn't stopped by the referee, that corner, when he made the comment, hey, I'm losing my teeth, you got to say we're done. By the way, dude was bleeding out of his ears. I think he had a broken orbital. His eyes were swollen up. I mean, this guy is a savage. You have to save him from him.
Yeah. You have to save yourself from him. And this is the last thing I'm going to say really quickly. I see the referee, and the rule is always intelligently defend yourself. Every time Jason said, I mean, I was watching the fight. Every time Jason said, show me something, Anthony. Show me something, Anthony. He was trying to pull him in close the distance. He was trying to hit him with elbows from the bottom and things like that. And he wasn't necessarily connecting on all of them. But Anthony Smith kept fighting that fight until he couldn't do it anymore, right? And so with that being said, Jason Herzog isn't as much to be blamed as the corner. And like you said, you have to be able to save your fighter. And when Jason Herzog is literally thinking in his head, as long as he's intelligently defending himself, he still wants to be in this fight. the guys who do know him a little bit better, and the guys that do have more of a responsibility to not only hundreds of fighters, but strictly on that night and during that time is Anthony Smith. The corner needs to jump in and say something. So either way, Anthony Smith is a beast. Incredible fighter. Before we go, we finish up round 5. Before we get out of here, we are going to finish this off a very, very big UFC card once again tonight. Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris. We're just going to get fighter picks in really quick before we finish off the episode. Dave, who do you have tonight? Walt Harris versus Alistair Overeem.
Okay, so number one, this is such an exciting fight. I'm excited for this. I'm truly thrilled to death that we're getting, all of these fights. That being said, I went back and I watched Alistair Overeem in Pride take on Vitor Belfort this week. And man, oh man, a young Alistair Overeem was super fun to watch, was super slick with his jiu-jitsu. I mean, it was fun, and it's from the golden era of mixed martial arts. Fun times. Number 8, number 9, heavyweight. This is actually as close to a pick'em as you can get. Based on all that's been going on and all that happened with his family, I'm going to pick Walt Harris. I'd like to see him have something good happen in his life. But I got to tell you, I don't want Alistair to lose because I want him to stay in the UFC. I freaking think this guy is fun, talented, interesting. He's just a great storyline, and he has been a professional's professional for forever. I mean, literally since I was 7. It feels like this guy's been around since the beginning of time. Who do you have in this fight?
Alistair Overeem is he's kind of one of those underrated active fighters. Like Greg Hardy fights all the time, Cowboy fights all the time, Angela Hill fights all the time. Alistair Overeem fights all the time. Like he's always in there. And he's always looking to get something done. And so hats off to him. I'm super excited to see what happens. I like you, I'm rooting for Walt. I really want to see something good happen in his life. And this is an emotional time. And what a lot of people are talking about is it's got to be tough to be Alistair Overeem tonight. It's got to be tough to say, dude, I got to go in there and beat for my life, I have to go and fight a guy who's been through a lot lately. And so for hats off to Alistair for even taking the fight and having the courage to go in there and fight this guy. And it's going to be a fun matchup. Again, like you said, 2 big power hitters, two veterans in the game. And it's going to be another one of those really, really good fight nights. And I have again, like you, splitting hairs, as close as it gets. I have no idea who's actually going to win this fight. I kind of lean more towards Alistair just because he gave Jairzinho Rozenstruik such a tough time a few months back. But Walt Harris coming off of this, he's got something to prove, and he's got every reason to win this fight as well.
Yeah. Alistair's the pro's pro. I see him, possibly, just being the more technical fighter and winning this fight. Walt Harris, a lot of emotion in this, and I'd like to see something good happen to him. What about the next fight, Claudia and Angela?
Oh, I really like Angela Hill. Claudia Gadelha is a great fighter. A little, seen her highs and seen her lows. But overall, I see Angela Hill just coming, and she looks hungry. And I'll give it to Angela Hill all day for this one, and I'll be rooting for her because she's another one.
Okay, I agree. Probably be rooting for her as well. I think. Claudia might win this fight. I think this is a tough fight. But I probably am with you. I kind of want to see Angela Hill win this fight.
I want to see her go on a run.
Yeah, I do too. I do too. And a solid pro. I'd like to see her win this fight.
Me too. And then we got
what about the next one?
Ige and Barboza.
Did you see the cut? Did you see the weight cut?
He didn't look horrible from what I can remember.
To me, he didn't look great. To me, he didn't look great. And I don't understand the drop. Do you?
He's fought everybody at 55, and 55 is a juggernaut, and he's not better than Oliveira. He's not better than Felder. He's not better than all of these other guys. I mean, as much as, he's not better than these guys. I mean, I take that back. Actually, he beat Paul Felder a few months ago in Abu Dhabi. But I don't think that he beats Charles Oliveira. I don't think he beats Dan Hooker. And then I definitely don't think he beats any of the four kings. So who's his next fight? A Cowboy Cerrone? It's tough to say who he could fight next. Why not make the cut to 45? Like he says, if he can make the cut, then why not fight there and see what goes on? I mean, same thing as Jose Aldo did at 135 pounds. Maybe he comes out and looks real sharp, and real heavy, and real good. And I mean, I thought Jose won that fight back in December, but he lost it to Marlon. But a lot of people thought Jose won that fight, and I think Edson might have a similar impact on the featherweight division.
Well, he's super long in this fight. I mean, he's long to begin with, but dropping down a weight class, I don't know how you can root against him. I mean, I don't know. I think he might win this fight. I'm just surprised that this is where we're at, because I agree with you. He won that Felder fight.
Yeah.
Right? He did win that fight. And what about this? I don't know a whole lot about the Anders.co fight, but I'm going to tell you what. I want to see Song Yadong fight Marlon Vera. That's the fight I really, really am dying to see. And I think Song is going to knock his lights out. What do you think?
Song Yadong is, first of all, probably the funnest name in the UFC. Second of all,
seriously legit.
One of the funnest guys to watch. And when you have the mind and the guidance of a Uriah Faber, does he realize, I mean, of course he does. Does he realize how lucky he is? Like, that he gets to have, I mean, they put an article out about him, and they said, this is Uriah Faber's prodigy. And to be given that title, that comes with a lot of weight. So we'll see. I mean, some more eyes are on this fight than usual. I mean, Song Yadong has really made a name for himself in his last fight, and it's time to show the world who you really are. Let's see if you can saddle up and get on that horse, or if you're gonna quiver up. So we'll have to wait and see. But I'm excited, and I hope Song Yadong has a good night.
Yeah, I think he's going to do it. Okay, and now can we just drop down real quick? How in the world do we get Matt Brown, the Immortal, back on the prelims?
Yeah.
I mean, how does that happen? Right? I mean, thanks, Dana. Holy crap.
Yeah. They're doing everything. They're doing everything. And we are the luckiest fan base in the world right now.
I mean, that's just crazy. I'm just excited for this. They're starting probably in about right now, actually.
Yeah, right now.
The prelims are starting, but I can't wait to see Matt Brown back in the octagon. That's fun. There's a bunch of stuff going on. Song Yadong is my man. Team Alpha Male back in the house. And he's Uriah's boy. That is just got to be so great. I mean, that guy's coming from a fight camp that's second to none. And I think you got to know that his wrestling is super on point. You got to know that he's working the guillotine just like every one of those freaking guys there. Great top wrestling, good striking. This guy's going to be fun to watch.
It's going to be great. And that will do it for this episode of FTN MMA Podcast. Dave, we could talk all day, but we got to go and watch these fights. So I appreciate the time, and I appreciate another episode in the books. So we will be back probably next week to talk more about this fight night and what's to come in the UFC. And until then, can't wait. Dave, do you have anything before we head out?
Hey, just like I said before, consider me Uriah Faber. I'm always in shape, and I'm always ready to step on the scale. And thanks for having me and letting me come in and talk. And I mean, full disclosure, this is basically what you and I do every time we get on the phone, or every time we're on a chat, or every time we're together. So we're just putting a camera on, what you do with me all the time. So
exactly. It's the best thing we can do. All right. Well, take care.
Peace.
Peace.